Good afternoon and welcome. I am Jazrib Gosal. I'm the Policy and Research Manager at the Surrey Board of Trade. And I want to thank you for attending today's Surrey Development Industry Forum, addressing BC's housing crisis. And I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are on the traditional territory of the Coast Salish people, specifically the Kwantlen, Katzie, Coquitlam, Kaikite, Semiahmoo, and Tsawwassen First Nations. As well, I acknowledge the Inuit and Métis Nations people who live and work on these territories. Now, everyone, events like this could not happen without our sponsors, so please do help me thank our sponsors of this event. Our presenting sponsor, Unity. Our lunch sponsors, the BM Group of Companies and the BC Real Estate Association. Our supporting sponsors, Applin and Martin, East to West Financial Corporations, and Surrey City Development Corporation. And finally, our community sponsor, the Fortis BC. Thank you very much. I would also like to thank our progress partners, the Chamber of Commerce Group Insurance Plan by S&F Group Benefits, the law firm of Faskin, Focus College, Lighthouse Labs, and Western Community College. Thank you very much for your support. And I would like to have you all help me welcome some guests in the audience. Today we have the City of Surrey Mayor, Brenda Locke. And City of Surrey Councillors, Linda Annis and Doug Elford. Now everyone, on behalf of the Surrey Board of Trade, I thank you for supporting Surrey's city building business organization. The Surrey Board of Trade is working to meet the business and economic challenges of our members for the wider business community. We advocate for red tape reduction, defined as excessive bureaucracy or routine or rules, or complexity, which results in delay or unreasonable costs for businesses. Filing forms and applying for licenses are a part of doing business. However, we want to ensure that it isn't onerous on our members. As such, we have our annual red tape survey that gives a baseline of our members' perceptions to measure how different levels of government can have the opportunity to improve processes. Now I'm going to go through the results, which were released just this morning. Thank you very much. So this is the 7th red tape survey that captures member experiences from which Surrey Board of Trade can measure improvement over time. Several emails introducing the survey were sent out to our membership from the end of August to early October. And the Surrey Board of Trade, we conduct these surveys annually to track improvements where they occur and identify concerns as they arise for our members, specifically to gain a deep understanding of our members' regulatory burden, to determine any actions, recommendations, or policies that may be required, as well as to add to our own body of knowledge that will lead to better regulation and lower costs for businesses and taxpayers. So as you can see on this slide here, just got to find it in my notes, with the impact of inflation, interest rate hikes, cost of living, and other impacts on business in mind, we asked our respondents to rate the statements listed. Now you can see that 100% of respondents indicated that they agree or strongly agree that operating costs have increased. Additionally, 52.8% of respondents indicated that they disagree or strongly disagree that they have experienced increases in revenues or business leads, up from 50% in the previous year. This shows that while businesses have experienced higher operating costs, their revenues have not increased. Of those that responded to the survey, many had to adjust their pricing, about 66%, while some businesses had to raise their prices due to increased overhead because of interest rates, supply chain issues, etc. Others had to lower their prices in order to remain competitive. Now you can see on this graph here that the federal government has the most complicated process to file taxes, followed by the province. The municipal government has the simplest process. Having local staff present and in person could be one reason why it is easier for businesses to work with their municipality versus the provincial or federal government. It was noted in the responses that it is difficult to get a hold of representatives from the federal and provincial governments within all ministries. Over the last 5 years, we see that the majority of respondents are impacted by regulations in one way or another. Businesses of varying sizes, from 1 to 100 plus employees in all industries that responded, reported that they were impacted by regulations. Now, although regulations are a necessary and important part of doing business, there is room for improvement, as noted here. If regulations hinder growth, governments need to relook at policy and assess whether the regulations can change so that Canada can maintain a competitive edge in a globalized market. Assessing our regulations against those of other jurisdictions and other countries is a necessary part to drive global growth and investment into Canada. So we asked as well our business community about the employer health tax, or EHT, which is in British Columbia a payroll tax implemented to help fund the province's healthcare system. A little bit about the EHT is that employers with BC remuneration greater than $500,000, the exemption amount, in a calendar year must register for the EHT. Employers include individuals, a corporation, a partnership, a trust, or a government. And the table that you see on the screen indicates that 36.6% of respondents experienced a moderate to severe impact, while 46.7% of respondents experienced no impact at all. The BC Green Party, a number of years ago, had indicated it hopes to increase the exemption threshold from $500,000 to $1.5 million for businesses that are paying the EHT. We asked respondents if they supported such a shift, and there, as you can see, there was overwhelming support from the business community to make this change. %40 of respondents have indicated that paid sick leave legislation has had an impact to business operations, and many respondents, interestingly, did indicate that there was no impact. When we asked for them to explain, the reason was, the resounding reason was, that businesses already offered commensurate sick pay without the need for regulations. Now, in this slide, we asked respondents to indicate how many sick days should be legislated, and respondents indicated that 5 sick days or fewer is the preferred option at 43.3%. Only 30% of respondents wanted more sick days, and 16.7% of respondents already provided paid sick leave without government intervention. Now, this slide illustrates some of the regulatory reform necessary at all levels of government. We asked an open-ended question in the survey, and as you can see, CRA processing times, live agent support, faster turnaround at all levels of government and all ministries, the speculation and vacancy tax and underused housing tax reporting being streamlined, director reporting requirements being streamlined at the federal and provincial governments so that they can share this information so it isn't as onerous on businesses to report. Filing PST and GST taxes came in as the top specific regulatory reforms required. Now, this full report is on our website at businessinsurrey.com, and I encourage you all to check it out. We will be sharing this with our media stakeholder partners, as well as federal, provincial, municipal, and regional governments. Now, before we begin, I want to introduce Fabian Klein, Director of Care at Mackey's Place, to tell you a little bit about what they do in our community. Please help me welcome Fabian.
Hello, hello. All right, Surrey Board of Trade. I'm so thankful to be here today because I know that we're asking questions that really matter in our city. My name is Tegan, as he said, and I'm with Mackey's Place. I'm one of the founders. I'm here with some of my team, and we wanted to look at one of the things we're talking about today is the housing crisis. And so for us, one of the ways Mackey's Place gets to be a part of the solution is we get to increase employment and income. So how do we do that? We opened a coffee shop. And it's a free coffee shop for youth. Here's the catch. It's youth serving youth. And our focus is the hardest to reach kids in our city. And just in the last month, we were able to employ 39 kids in our job skills program. So what are they doing? Yeah, you can clap. Thank you. Thank you. What are they doing? You know what they're doing? They're taking orders. They're bussing tables. They're in the kitchen cooking. They're baristas. They're in the dish pit. And they're learning skills for their future. But that's not all. They're also a part of a team, and they're solving problems together, and they're a part of contributing. You know, there's something Canada has done. It's called the Canada Housing Plan, and it has this ending sentence in it. Here's what it says. Together, we can restore the promise of Canada, where every generation can afford to have a place to call home. Too often, we don't believe that that's possible, and so as a result, we do too little. We see this all the time in the kids that we work with. It's called hopelessness. So what we have found is as we keep showing up, and as the kids we work with keep showing up, we're combating hopelessness. And it's shocking the change we're able to make in doing that. So they have that line, together. Together isn't just some cheesy line. We see it. We see it in the community developers who come alongside us. They're not just building beautiful towers and homes, they're building into kids' futures with us. We see it when Mayor Locke comes and has a tea and encourages some young people. We see it when our favorite police officer comes in and he fist bumps a kid and has a coffee with them. Together isn't actually just some cheesy statement. It's actually the solution. And so for us at Mackey's Place, for our young crew, we're super thankful that we get to be a part of Together with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fabian. We are looking forward to hosting our next Networking at Night, actually, at Mackey's Place on November 13th, and I hope all of you will be there and join us at that event. Now, today's event is focusing on the housing crisis in BC. The city of Surrey will soon become the largest city in British Columbia, and that means more jobs and opportunities. However, there are not enough affordable homes for people to stay and thrive within their community. How will government address these issues of housing affordability for a diverse community such as Surrey, where we have about 104 different languages spoken here? We have immigration mainly coming to the city of Surrey. We're going to surpass 1 million residents by about 2040. We need to ensure that not only do we have affordable housing, but we have the infrastructure to support that housing as well. That includes hospitals, that includes healthcare in general, that includes transit systems and transportation networks. The evidence is clear and supported by expert panels and institutions that there is not enough housing supply, to meet the needs of British Columbians. No one factor has created this situation, but one aspect of the predicament should be easy to solve. It is taking government too long to approve the housing we need. And we know this because we've heard from our development community through our red tape report, through our meetings with not only our business community, but with government stakeholders as well, that permitting timelines, regulations, as well as the tax that they're paying is eroding their bottom line and impacting their ability to do what they do best, which is to build housing and get more housing on the market. And now I would like to welcome Doug Tennant, CEO of Unity, and our presenting sponsor to the stage.
Thank you, Jazroop, and thank you for mentioning and making that statement that we need a Canada where our children and their children can afford housing. And I'm going to talk a little bit about about Unity and some good news about housing in the city of Surrey. I'm Doug Tennant. I'm the CEO of Unity, and Unity is a partnership of 3 not-for-profit organizations that build healthy and inclusive communities through services and affordable housing. Unity was actually chosen as the BC MPHA Housing Provider of the Year, and the Surrey Board of Trade, Surrey Board of Trade Not-for-Profit of the Year for the resilience that we showed in bringing our Harmony apartment project back from 2 unjust rejections at Surrey City Hall. And someone came to me, said to me today, "You look a lot happier than the last few times you come and talk here." And it's true, because we are moving forward with Harmony, which is a 91 inclusive and affordable rental apartment being built on land that we own in South Surrey. I'm very happy and relieved to say that we broke ground this summer, and the apartment will be completed towards the end of 2026. I would really like to acknowledge Lauren Simpson, who is at the Unity table, for her advocacy in making sure that people with disabilities have a home that they can call their own in Harmony. Our inclusive housing model means that at least 22 of the rental homes in Harmony will be for tenants who have developmental disabilities, while the rest will be for people who can no longer afford to live in the communities where they grew up, young families, seniors, students, employees of Surrey businesses. Now, while I'm grateful that Harmony is going forward, that delay with City Hall approvals greatly increased the cost of the project, leading to about a $10 million gap in funding that needed to be addressed. And unlike perhaps some market developers, it's not tenable for us to put things on hold. Because when we put things on hold, we're actually telling people you'll never have a home. And we know these people. They're part of our community. And so stopping wasn't in the cards. We had to move forward. And I'm delighted to say, I'm very grateful to say that BC Housing increased the grant that they were coming to the table with, and the City of Surrey used the Housing Accelerator Fund to grant back our development cost charges and community amendment charges. Significant investment in the project of about $2.5 million. The first time that the City of Surrey has done that, so I want to say I'm very grateful to the City of Surrey. And Mayor Locke and Council for making that happen. And the other very positive thing is that this also means that other affordable housing projects built by nonprofits will have an easier path in Surrey. And that's very important for us, because one of our missions is that people will live in housing that is quality housing that fits their community. And now many other organizations are going to be able to build that housing with the help of the City of Surrey. So I very much appreciate that. I should also note that Surrey City staff have always been in support of Harmony, and I believe that actually some of them were more shattered than Unity was when the previous council rejected the project. So I wanted to say thank to Rob Costanza, Don Loomis, Aileen Murphy, Krista Brown, Preet here, and many others who have championed the affordable housing cause for the citizens of this great city. Wanted to give a shout out to Ben Daly, who was our contact and really did a great job of navigating the things that we needed and the things that the city needed in a very respectful way that resulted in the project going forward. Our model of inclusive housing means that people with developmental disabilities live with support in an apartment as tenants like any of the other tenants in the building. And we know that our model works, and because we have the quality of life research that backs that up. Tenants with developmental disabilities have a higher quality of life than the average British Columbian, the tenants that live in Chorus apartment, and are more likely to find work, more likely to volunteer, and more likely to contribute to their community. Now, I can tell you this, but the best way is to understand the model is to visit Chorus Apartments, which we completed in 2016. And so I'd like to invite anybody here, if you're interested in learning more about us, there are some cards on your table that you can fill in, or come and talk to anybody at the Unity table, and we'd be delighted to invite you out and show you Chorus, meet some of the tenants, so you can see with your own eyes that this is a housing solution that will be a benefit for the entire city of Surrey and the province. And just in closing, I really appreciate the support. I'm looking out here at many of the developers who supported us as we moved forward with Harmony. And without your support, I wouldn't be saying that inviting you in 2 years' time to come to the ribbon cutting of Harmony Apartments. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Tegan.
Thank you very much, Doug. We were a proud supporter of Harmony Housing, all 3 times that I went to council. And so we're so pleased to see this coming online and coming out very soon. And we definitely do need more housing, different types of housing, below market rental, specific housing for people with specific needs as well. All of that is part of the ecosystem that we need to create. Now, I would like to welcome Trevor Hargreaves, Senior Vice President of Government Relations, Marketing, and Communications of the BC Real Estate Association, our lunch sponsor, to say a few words.
There we go. Thank you very much. I'm always really excited to come to this event, and I think it makes it all the more exciting today that we're right on the outset of a provincial election, which I'm sure will temper some of the discussion in the panel later today. So I come to you on behalf of the BC Real Estate Association and the 26,000 plus realtors right across the province. Our association may be a little bit more familiar to some of you than it has been, simply because in the lead up to the election, many of the parties were quite late with their housing platforms, and we took it upon ourselves and increasingly have gone in this direction, that when it comes to our advocacy, so that we're not moving forwards to be espousing opinion, we've gone more and more along the lines of careful policy and research and really trying to look at what works, what doesn't. We spent a lot of time in the media in the lead up to the election really picking apart the various platform positions of the parties and talking about the strengths and weaknesses of each. We're in a business-oriented room today. I think that can often come with a bit of an air of disappointment to some when you look at the outcome of the election. But I want to just put forward some words of optimism today, because I think a degree of opportunity is presented to all of us. I think that when you look at the way that this election has come out, with the NDP barely squeaking by, barely maintaining government, that has taught a lesson to the Premier. And it is certainly my hope that in the months to come, they will be much more carefully listening to business interests. Because at the end of the day, why don't we take a minute to that? We live in a social democracy. It is much of what makes this country great. But if you don't have a strong economy to back the social services that you are trying to pay for, you don't have much of a country in the long run. And I think that is a lesson that certainly has been broadcast very loudly when it comes to the election results. And so what does that mean for all of us in this room? My messaging for all of you, no matter what association you come from, is to look at what you can do to be better collaborating within the housing sector. We are, at the end of the day, a continuum. And whether or not you're a developer interest, you represent non-market housing, indigenous housing developments, wherever you come from, we are much stronger when we're operating together rather than independently, looking at where we can collaborate and coming to government as a host of organizations rather than what can often be perceived as an individual special interest group. So as we move forward to the panel today, I'll be very interested in some of the discussion, but certainly it's my hope that in the year to come, and as this government finds its footing, everyone in this room can increasingly be looking to better collaborate, to better work together, and to try to help assist and draw a stronger economy in this province in the year to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Trevor, and so true. Now is an opportunity for all of us here to work with the newly elected MLAs. They are going to need our support to understand the needs of the business community, to understand the needs of the housing developers as well. I would also like to thank right now the BM Group of companies for their commitment to Surrey as our sponsors. They are a family-owned and operated portfolio providing construction solutions unlike any other in the province. BM Group transcends land development. It is an industry-leading and trustworthy brand across multiple industries. These complementary operations span multiple industries from real estate development, construction support services, and material supply to structural support and waterproofing. The BM Group has united businesses with the same purpose and vision under one company to provide quality assurance and value-added service to its clients, offering an integration of 22 companies supported by a team of 500 based out of Coquitlam, BC, with offices in Seattle, Washington, Portland, Oregon, along with operations in New Delhi, India. Thank you very much for your support and sponsorship. Now, without further ado, it is my honor to welcome your speaker for today. Her leadership continues to shape the future of our city. Everyone, please help me welcome Mayor of Surrey, Her Worship, Brenda Locke.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Lower the mic, standard procedure. It's not even a joke anymore. It's getting old, right? I'm just, I just have to, though, tell you all, I am the tallest in my family. So when I've kind of figured out that I'm not, it's a hell of a blow to me. Anyway. Everybody said so many things that I just want to leap off on. And I just wanted to say to Mackie's Place, they make the best pies, so absolutely, we will be there for your for the networking event at your place. And I know, Trevor, there you are. I do want to say that developers create our city. They develop the places and spaces and the homes that we live in. So for us, developers are just so crucial to who we are as a city, and we thank all of you for helping us to build the great city of Surrey. And I always want to thank Balraj and Milan Man for all you do for Surrey. This is a family that steps up every single time. And whenever they're asked, they're there. And so they are incredible community boosters and supporters. I can't think of anything I wanted to say about Doug, but Lauren is an absolute powerhouse. And, when we had to deal with the issues around unity under the previous administration, it was indeed crushing for me. It was sad, and I know for all of our staff, I know Ron Gill, who's here, knows how hard everybody worked to make sure that got on board. But it was critical to us that once we did get this turned around, that the city did everything we could in our power to support and to close that $10 million gap. So it was our duty, but it was also indeed our pleasure. So on behalf of Surrey City Council, I am truly pleased to be here for this industry forum, and I've been to this before, so but I forgot about everything I said before, so that's another issue. This isn't a dusted off speech. It is really inspiring, though, to see community builders come together, united by the common goal of tackling the housing crisis. And it is truly a crisis. As one of the fastest growing cities in Canada, Surrey has embraced the commitment not only to understand the housing crisis, but to provide the solutions that we all need together to get through this. This year, I'm proud to share that we are on track to break records in housing development with almost 6,000 new dwellings approved in just the first 3 quarters of this year. And that's more than $2.58 billion in construction. That's significant. And we will surpass 6,000 new dwellings by the end of the year, far exceeding the most we ever did, which was in 2019. Surrey City Council has approved a 3-year action plan to deliver even more housing, and we're aiming to increase our housing component by 27.8%. I don't know why they didn't say 28%, but 27.8. That, Ron, you have to be specific. But we will be increasing the new housing units over the next 3 years. And so, as you can see, we are well on our way to achieving that goal. And in fact, we will hit 27% by the end of 2026. So what do all these numbers really mean? Well, they are a direct reflection of the proactive approach to facilitating development and promoting affordable housing. And that was something, Jezrup, you were talking about. It is very critical that we address the affordability issue. To achieve this, we've taken a number of steps. The most recent is to introduce a one-year pilot program that simplifies the development permit process for houseplexes. And for those of you who don't know what that is, I sure didn't. It's really the impact of Bill 44. And what that means, that 6 and 4 units. Not only will this pilot streamline approvals, but it will also significantly reduce the application fee from $5,014, again, we'll be specific, not $5,000, $5,014 to $389. Yes, that's a significant reduction. I've also recently established the Development Approval Process Improvement Task Force. So we're going to be continually reviewing all of our approval processes and monitoring them. This task force is a crucial element in our mission to conduct a comprehensive review of our development and permitting processes. And it will recommend measures to further speed up approvals and cut down red tape. Are you happy? We're going to keep doing it. We're reviewing our red tape reduction constantly and learn from the best practice from other municipalities. So we're always communicating and looking to others to see what their best practices are. But the goal is that Surrey is going to have the best practices and everybody's going to be coming to us, and I think that day is here. Together with prominent members of Surrey's development community, we are committed to turning our regulatory environment into one that champions efficiency and transparency. Our staff are also reviewing single-family residential zones to accommodate multi-unit homes and investing in incorporation of suites into the townhouses that are near the transit hubs. Our new rapid transit and non-market housing incentive program offers a 50% rebate for certain application fees. This program is expected to increase approximately by 3,000 housing units near transit hubs, and we truly look forward to seeing Surrey Langley SkyTrain get moving. As you know, Surrey has done all the preliminary work for that. We are ready to go. Unfortunately, we still haven't seen the shovel in the ground, although Broadway has. Not that I'm bitter about it. But we look forward to seeing that shovel get in the ground, and soon. We have made a variety of other improvements to help accelerate housing starts, including launching an automated rule-based zoning compliance tool. Oh, you're going to have to explain that, Ron. But we also have a new AI tool for zoning and development inquiries that is going to make it much easier and much quicker, and a revised process for our advisory design panel so that we're advancing projects to council faster. And aside from increasing overall housing starts, a key priority for us is helping facilitate the construction of new rental housing and affordable homes. And that is one of the things that Surrey Development Corporation is working very hard at, and we have a very large project coming into North Surrey, 1,800 units of housing going in to North Surrey. One of the 8 actions, our Housing Action Plan, is to increase the supply of below-market affordable housing through supportive policies. These include establishing processes to expedite non-market housing projects, improve inclusionary zoning, and density bonus policies for below-market units within private developments. Last month, we also launched our new Surrey Homeless Prevention and Response Plan, which takes a focused approach to supporting the development of affordable housing, including providing fee and permit discounts for projects with a significant affordable housing component, developing permissive tax exemptions for non-market housing providers, co-locating new civic facilities within with non-market housing. So we're looking at that. How can we utilize our land better? And waiving development cost charges, as we did with Unity, for non-market rental projects. Two projects that have already benefited from that exemption, of course, are Harmony Apartments in South Surrey and Zapponi Manor, which is a seniors facility in Cloverdale. And in addition to all of this, the city is in the process of updating our housing needs report for today and over the next 20 years. And we're going to do it in a way that is honest, factual, and transparent. Underlying all of these initiatives is our commitment to collaborate, and we are transforming our system of regulation into one of facilitation. And I'm going to just kind of repeat that. We're going to change from regulation to facilitation, just a mindset, and it's something I think where words matter, and is going to be something that we're going to be committing to the development industry. It's about removing barriers so you, our dedicated developers and business partners, can deliver housing faster so that together we can build a Surrey that each of us can proudly call home. And I just want to take a moment to underscore the importance of the federal and provincial support we need to move forward. The rapid growth of our city demands not just housing, as you all know, it necessitates robust infrastructure planning. For decades, Surrey has been ignored, and it's time that we got our fair share of federal and provincial dollars. It's clear that to date, Surrey's needs have been ignored by those other orders of government. We see the reality of that neglect in our schools, in our hospitals, and in our social services, and with our public transit. Despite this, Surrey is doing its part to increase housing supply, other amenities, and roads. In fact, my council is doing over $300 million of road infrastructure right this term, more than any other city in the region. Is there any road builders out here? Just checking for no. They're pretty pumped about Surrey. Surrey is building housing that we are doing through our city planning, meaning we will take into account the infrastructure needed to make our neighborhoods work. However, the imposed housing quota the province has imposed on municipalities does not factor in the necessary infrastructure that needs to be in place to service all this new housing. City staff has done an analysis of what it would cost for us to accommodate the province's housing vision, what Bill 44 is going to cost us. So get ready for this. In order for us to accommodate those multiplexes, it's going to be $800 million just to upgrade sewer and water systems. So the question is, who pays for that? That's a big question we all need to answer, because we certainly have not heard that the province is prepared to do that. It looks to me this is another example where the costs are being downloaded to cities, and we simply cannot pass it on to our taxpayers once again. That is why the city has neighborhood plans in place, and if we are to build to what the province is demanding, then it must be accompanied by provincial and federal investment in schools and other infrastructure and amenities to support that growth. The bottom line is we must focus on providing homes that are not just structures, but places of safety and stability for our families and future generations. The work we are doing requires us to think outside of the box, to come up with innovative solutions streamline processes, and to work in partnership every step of the way with all of you. This positions us to reshape the narrative and the reality around housing in the city of Surrey. I am very, very excited about the promise of our city. I am very excited about what City of Surrey is going to become, and I know we live in an amazing place. We are blessed in the city of Surrey. And I'm looking forward to what we can do together to continue to build this city into something that is going to be truly an amazing place to live and work and play. I want to thank all of you for your commitment to our city and for this vital dialogue, and I hope it keeps going because this is not something that has to stop. The housing crisis for us in Surrey is real, and we must take every step we can together to accommodate what will be the most inclusive, vibrant, and truly exceptional place in all of Metro Surrey to live. I say that and then the Vancouver guys get all worried and nervous, and they should. And they should. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Mayor Locke. We definitely are going to be a powerhouse, and I really love that, from regulation to facilitation, working with our business community, working with our development community, big and small, to ensure that their projects move across the finish line quicker to cut down costs. I do believe that Surrey is leading the way in BC regarding housing and implementation, and we need to make sure that we're getting the investment from all orders of government to accommodate the growth that we're experiencing as well. Now, it is my honor to introduce your panel for this afternoon. I ask them all to please join me on stage, and they'll each take a turn in order at the podium. Please, everyone in the audience, be prepared with your questions or comments as you listen to the perspectives from these industry experts, and we'll have a chance to ask them some of these questions here after they deliver their presentations. We are here, as a reminder, to work together. First of all, the CEO of BC Real Estate Association, Trevor Koot, if you can make your way to the stage. CEO of BC Nonprofit Housing Association, Gill Atkey. Acting General Manager of Planning and Development, City of Surrey, Ron Gill. And the CEO of Channel Consulting, Tegan Smith. So Trevor, we'll begin with you if you want to take the podium here. And we got the clicker for you as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Jasroop, and thank you to the Surrey Board of Trade for inviting us to be here to speak, but also to sponsor and partner on the event. Doug asked me earlier if I was going to share some optimism, and I hadn't thought about that. And I think the answer is no. But it's not pessimism either. I think what I want to talk about is just the reality of the scenario that we find ourselves in when it comes to housing affordability, development, opportunities for governments to work together, the barriers that we find ourselves up against in order to achieve what we're all looking for, which is some aspect of housing affordability into the future. To be entirely fair, every level of government has a significant challenge in balancing the initiatives that are going to incentivize and make clearer opportunity for buyers, especially first-time home buyers, to enter the market, but balancing that against the inventory that we have, the lack of inventory that we have in this country, and certainly in the province of British Columbia. And as a result, we, as the BC Real Estate Association, are looking at initiatives and opportunities of how do we advocate, how do we clearly advocate for both of those sides of that balance and still create those opportunities for supply, but also demand. And that's a challenge. It's a challenge right across the board. What I was asked to talk about was economics. I'm not an economist. We have one on staff, and many of you have probably seen him speak, Brendan Ogmanson. But I don't think that we can have a conversation around economics in the province, especially housing economics and all of those implications and the realities of that environment, without talking about policy and regulation. And so what I'm going to do is kind of marry those two things together. What we talked about and lead up to the election, my colleague Trevor Hargreaves that was up here earlier identified that we were very vocal. We saw an opportunity to really bring housing and housing affordability to the forefront in lead up to the election. We had 5 primary issues. I'll talk about 3 of them. The first one, and Trevor articulated it very well, is a provincial housing roundtable. We want to see an opportunity, and Jazroop just spoke to it, Mayor Locke, bringing people together. Let's have those conversations. Let's bring everybody around. And we're joking that we're hitting a wall with the idea of a roundtable, so we may need to change the shape of it. But a table regardless, bringing all those voices together. I felt like that was going to be funnier than it was, but that's okay. That's okay. The second item outside of the roundtable is looking at tax reform. And primarily we talked about the property transfer tax. Again, balancing this idea of how do we incentivize and lessen the barriers for people to enter the housing market while knowing that we have a supply challenge, that we know that the lack of supply is what's causing affordability to be a challenge for many people in the province and in the country. But we talked about there needing to be something that was created in 1987, is costing people $11,000 on average per transaction, needs to be reviewed. It was implemented as a luxury tax. Let's have a look at it and see where we can start to have a conversation around reform. And then the last piece related to our initiatives related to the election was, and I'll speak to this in a couple of different formats, the opportunity around trades, skilled labor. We did a study. We had the Conference Board of Canada work with us and the Ontario Real Estate Association and the Canadian Real Estate Association to look at what do we require from an immigration perspective. And we're seeing the federal government start to talk about things related to immigration, which again changes that demand side of the conversation. We conducted a study with the Conference Board of Canada and identified that there is opportunity for us to really navigate some of those immigration conversations, to be intentional about the opportunity for, especially within the construction industry, to bring the people that they need in order to achieve some of the targets around housing that we're trying to achieve. The other piece that our internal economics department is looking at related to the skilled labor is what is it that we need in the province in order to achieve some of the targets that we're talking about are achievable. Our economics department has identified that they are achievable, but it's going to take a little bit of a miracle. It's going to take it's nothing short of a challenge. If prices continue to increase at 4% per year, then the average home price in 10 years is going to be $1.6 million. And we haven't seen as low of an increase of 4% in the last 25 years. So that's even a low target, a low threshold to hit. Mayor Locke spoke about some of the investment and bringing developers, having developers be a key part of this. $200 to $300 billion of investment needs to come into British Columbia in order to achieve the very tough targets that are laid out of 300,000 units within the next 10 years. That's a really high number and a high challenge. If we focus on the trades, skilled trades, making sure that the right people are getting the right education, are moving through the system and coming into creating the opportunity to help build the housing that we targets, achieving the targets that we need, it is possible, but it is a long way off for us. The other piece that I want to talk about is, again, kind of this collaborative environment. Doug spoke about the great opportunity that the City of Surrey opened up to them related to the Accelerator Fund from the federal government. Again, initiatives that everybody's looking at, how do we balance the demand versus opportunity to incentivize supply? About a year ago, we had Federal Minister of Housing, Sean Fraser, that was going to announce some opportunities for the City of Vancouver and City of Burnaby related to the Accelerator Fund, and he paused that announcement because there was all of a sudden an announcement from the municipalities of increased DCCs, and it was going to disincentivize that Accelerator Fund announcement. Again, just the barrier of communication, the lack of conversation between different levels to see where can we actually leverage what one level of government is doing to benefit the other levels and the developers and affordable market and non-market housing. And that's what we saw with the City of Surrey with their announcement related to leveraging the Accelerator Fund, actually incentivizing the development, and now we have 91 new units coming into Surrey. So again, echoing what my colleague Trevor said earlier, we're going to leverage over the next couple of years really incentivizing these conversations, bringing the folks together so that we can understand that it is a difficult balance, but also appreciate that without the conversations, we're not going to keep moving things forward and create new housing in British Columbia. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Good to be here with you today. I prepared just a few slides so that you had something to look at other than me, and I'm not sure, and there they are. And I've got a clicker here. So great to be with you. As I said at my table, it feels like I was coming into ground zero or the hotbed of democracy when I drove in this morning. So congratulations to you all. What an exciting election we had, and very, very close. It's nice now to have a sense of the path forward anyway. I'm going to chat a bit about non-market housing and what it takes to create affordability, building on a bit of what Trevor talked about already, and actually building on all of the speakers so far. So I'll try not to be too repetitive in my comments. Whenever we're talking about housing affordability, it's really a function of two things, your income and the cost of something. So I was really happy, Fabian, to hear you say that you're increasing incomes, because that also helps with affordability. Median household renter income in the province of BC, and I like to start with this because it's a bit of a reality check, $63,000 pre-tax annually. That's $71,000 in the city of Surrey. And so for those households, half of all households, that means an affordable rent for them is $1,775 a month. And lots of developers in the room, hands up if you can make a project pencil at an average rent of $1,775 a month. No hands up. It's actually not possible in this development environment. So we have a situation where the market, and we're big proponents of market rental supply. We've done a lot of advocacy right across the supply continuum, big believers in housing supply. But we know we need targeted investments in addition to that, because we have an environment where we can't build for half of all renter households. So $1,775 is an affordable rent for half of all renter households in Surrey. Latest rent data from rentals.ca has Surrey asking rents of about $2,500 a month. And this is not for new supply, this is for all supply. Brand new product would be much higher than this. So I'll talk a little bit about our election plans. As Trevor mentioned earlier, we take an evidence-based approach in our advocacy. We look at the numbers and we put forward a case with some policy solutions that we think are going to work. In our last advocacy around the provincial election, we had two central themes: build more and protect more. We know we need a lot more rental supply built right across the income continuum, and we need to be doing a better job of protecting the affordable supply that we already have. I'll focus on the new supply. Our numbers put forward that over the next 10 years, we will need 125,000 new affordable rental homes for incomes below $50,000 annually. And 40% of all renters in British Columbia are below this threshold. So how do we create affordability? Mayor Locke mentioned this, and quite right to point out that the single biggest contributor to affordability in a new project is senior levels of government. So I didn't have numbers for a project in Surrey at hand, so this is a project from Delta a couple of years ago. So new project goes up, break-even rents. So in the nonprofit sector, we operate on break-even rents. We've eliminated the profit margin. So capital and operating costs need to be covered from rents. This is a mix of studios, 1 and 2 bedrooms. Break-even rents on that project, so no investment from any level of government, $19.50 a month. So already above that affordability threshold. Then the province and the federal government step in with $11.5 million capital grant contributions to that project, and BC Housing comes in with an annual operating subsidy of $400,000 a year. And that brings rents down to just over $1,300 a month. So that's the single biggest contributor toward affordability. And then the city of Delta waived their development cost charges, and then TransLink and Metro waived their development cost charges. That brought it down a further $80 a month. So the final rents in this project are $1,225. That's now affordable to a household earning $49,000 a year. That's what it takes to create affordability on day one of a project. And importantly, in the non-market sector, the nonprofit sector, that affordability is going to be realized in perpetuity or protected in perpetuity. So senior levels of government have a specific role around investing in projects like this. Municipalities can make a contribution toward affordability, and it's an important contribution, but obviously not the same contribution that the province and the federal government can make. So what is the role of municipalities? We've already covered that off in the previous speakers, so I'll just focus in on a couple of areas. Anytime a nonprofit, and it's not different for a private sector project, goes through the approvals process, they're subject to 3 variables: cost, time, and certainty of approval. So on cost, the incentives go a long way. Creating the right conditions for nonprofit housing, so waiving DCCs, Mayor Locke, you talked about looking at property tax exemptions, making direct contributions from affordable housing funds. Those all go toward creating that, the right conditions for development, but also to improving affordability. There's 800 nonprofit housing providers in British Columbia. They will shop around. So where projects get declined in a municipality, Unity got declined in Surrey, nonprofits are going to be looking to Langley. It doesn't matter to them. The need is as big in Langley as it is in Surrey. They will find the municipalities that create the right conditions to work with them. The other is time. So Mayor Locke mentioned being that internal champion and moving and guiding those projects through the through the approvals process goes a really long way in streamlining those projects. And then certainty of approval. There's no reason why, in the nonprofit sector, we've got about 400 projects currently under development in the province. Most of those are rezoning. There's no reason why it needs to be a rezoning for every single project. OCPs are in place, it's the zoning that's not in place. And many of these projects are consistent with the OCP. The land just hasn't been zoned in advance. And just finally, emphasizing that the stakes are high. You know, Surrey's got the example of unity that everybody's in this room is familiar with, but this just speaks to the certainty of approval. Nonprofits don't have deep projects. That certainty of approval is so critical because if a project is declined, it's not like they can pick up and develop a project somewhere else. Their reserves are spent quite often. So this is a project declined by Central Saanich just last week. It gives you a sense of really what's at stake. And it's in many ways a dream project. You have a private sector developer partnering with a nonprofit, creating nearly 200 affordable homes for seniors and healthcare workers, very close to healthcare facilities in the community. 2-year timeline to get through to the approvals process, $1 million invested. The developer was paying $500,000 in community amenities. The developer sold the land to the nonprofit for $750,000 below market. Strong support internally from district staff, the Housing Advisory Committee, and the local First Nation. And before it even got to public hearing, it was turned down last week in a 3-3 vote. So I was on the phone this morning with the proponents trying to regroup and figure out how to get these projects, this project moving forward. And this is a project that actually has no subsidy from senior level of government. And it's exactly the kind of project that the province is looking to enable, creating quite a remarkable level of affordability without investment and ongoing operating subsidies from government. And it's quite a beautiful partnership between private sector and nonprofit that's now at risk. And it's not like this nonprofit and this developer, where they already own the land, can just pick up and move to another community. So there's a lot at stake, and at the end of the day, it's people in communities that are impacted. So I'd like to leave everyone on a high note. There it is. No, just kidding. But look forward to the questions.
I'll move this up a little bit. Good afternoon, everyone. I also had a presentation, if I could get that up, please. Great, thank you very much. So it's a real pleasure to be here today, and thank you to the Surrey Board of Trade for asking me to attend this event. So I was asked to speak to you about how urban planning can be optimized to create sustainable, livable communities that could accommodate population growth, and how do we ensure that we have the necessary amenities and infrastructure to service those growing communities? And that's a challenging question. It's a lot to answer in a 7 to 8 minute presentation, so I'm going to try to do my best, but it'll be more of an overview today, and looking forward to working together to solving this issue. A little about me, and I think really that's a much younger picture of me, by the way. Hopefully I'm older and wiser and not just older than that picture. But anyway, so the most important thing here that's not on this screen is I was raised in Surrey. My parents bought their first house in Surrey. My grandparents lived in the basement suite. I went to school in Surrey. So it's a real honor to be here today. I've worked in Surrey in development planning for 20 years, and it's been great to be able to help shape the city of Surrey and be part of the planning of the city of Surrey for so many years. And I really look forward to Surrey's future and being a part of that. So how can planning support growing communities? And I think the more robust question is, how can planning departments support growing communities? As I really think it is a partnership of all of our divisions in planning, whether it's a development planner working with a developer on a project, whether it's community planning working on our long-range plans for new neighborhoods, or whether it's our building division issuing permits. We all need to be committed and working in partnership to deliver housing. This slide just shows that we're actually doing quite well from a housing delivery perspective. You'll see that we had a big jump in March and April, and most of the developers in the room will know why. That was the Metro Vancouver DCC increase. So we got a big jump in March and April in terms of permit issued. But I think what's important here is you're still seeing an upward curve. So we are on target to deliver, as the mayor said, over 6,000 housing units this year, which is our record. Our previous record was in 2019, and that was 5,900 units. Surrey continues to be a great place to do business. So we are down in a little bit, about 9% on our development applications, but we have a 13% increase in projects approved by council. So I think that goes to show that we have a council that's committed to approving housing projects and providing more housing for Surrey. We had a developer quote from our last DAC meeting that basically says that we do not have a development approval issue in Surrey. We have a housing delivery issue in Surrey. We currently have over 40, I think that number is a little bit dated, I think it's over 42,000 units that are approved by council waiting to be constructed. So these are projects that are at third reading or at final that haven't proceeded to building permit. So how do we help to advance those 42,000 units and start seeing shovels in the ground and projects proceeding? So we're doing a lot in planning and development. We're using about $95.6 million that we got from the federal government under the Housing Accelerated Fund to deliver a number of new initiatives to help speed up the delivery of housing projects in Surrey. We have until 2026 to deliver on our commitments, and we're well on track to deliver on those housing commitments, and we're using the money in good ways. So I won't go through the whole list here, but under our Housing Accelerator Fund action plan, we have a number of new initiatives to help deliver and streamline development approval processes. As was mentioned earlier, we do have a development incentives program for non-market and rapid transit programs or projects. So that's a 50% rebate on application fees for projects that are in proximity to rapid transit or that are delivering non-market housing. We're expanding our guaranteed permitting timelines program to not just include single-family homes, but also to include townhouses, low-rise, and high-rise projects. We're increasing the use of professional alliance to streamline permitting. So those of you who have used our certified professional program and haven't really seen the benefits of that program, well, you will, because we are going to improve that program and improve professional alliance so that the benefits are more evident in hiring professionals for your project. We're leveraging digital permitting and artificial intelligence. So we have our new AI chatbot online where people can go online and ask questions, what's the zoning of my property? And it gives a pretty accurate answer. I think it's 98% accurate. So again, helping to serve our residents better and using AI as a tool. We've also partnered with Atkey for basically doing preliminary reviews of building permits. So this is an online compliance tool that does a pre-check of your building permit, says, yep, it complies with the zoning, or yeah, it generally meets building code requirements. It's a pre-check, which then assists our plan checkers in not having to do as extensive reviews. We're increasing the supply of multi-unit housing near transit by creating new zones for 6-story, new townhouse zones, new mixed-use zones, again, to help create a more efficient process for the development community. We're partnering with external agencies to help deliver non-market housing, and we're reviewing and optimizing our internal resources. So we've just restructured our building division to help to create a more efficient and streamlined process for home builders and developers. We've also used we also have a Housing Accelerator Fund spending plan. So this is how we intend to spend the money. And the intent is to maximize the impact of that funding to assist with the creation of housing in our community. We're investing directly in infrastructure. So this is the first time that I can remember where Surrey is directly investing in infrastructure, both in Clayton and Grandview. So we are actually funding the construction of the spine infrastructure to open up those new communities. So that will unlock approximately 2,200 units that are currently waiting for that infrastructure to be delivered. We're also investing directly in housing projects. So we are looking to acquire 2 to 3 properties for affordable housing and partnering with external agencies to help deliver housing on those sites. We're also, as Madam Mayor mentioned, investing in SCDC's Gateway project, which is on 108th Avenue at around 133th Street in the city center, which is expected to deliver between 1,600 and 1,800 homes. We've got a lot of accomplishments to date. We've updated our zoning. That was a major exercise. We basically changed our whole zoning bylaw to incorporate small-scale multi-unit housing. We've introduced the Development Inquiry Assistant and our AI Assistant. We are now taking in digital permits for various trade permits and for inspections. We've introduced our Development Incentive Program, as I mentioned. We've updated our policy on pumping foundation drainage to help homeowners achieve basements on sites where they previously may not have been able to achieve basements and basement suites. We're introducing pilot programs to deliver housing in advance of subdivision approval, so you can essentially apply for your building permit for a single-family home before your lot is even created now in Surrey. So that's an exciting new thing and will hopefully help to accelerate processes. And we're in the process of exploring reductions to our stream side setbacks to help to create more land for development. So how do you create sustainable communities, livable communities? Well, you have a good plan for those communities. And we're working on developing a number of new neighborhood plans. They're all on the screen here. Annydale, Tynehead, Fleetwood, Clayton, City Center, South Westminster, Cloverdale. These are all plans that are underway that are delivering new comprehensive plans for new communities in Surrey. And a number of them are well underway with completion starting in 2024 and extending out into 2027. We're also densifying our current plans. So with the announcement of SkyTrain along Fraser Highway, we have redone our Fleetwood plan. We're in the process of updating our Clayton Corridor plan to significantly increase densities to help support that transit investment. And I think it's also important to note that all of the plans for Guildford, Fleetwood, and Clayton Corridor incorporate urban school sites. So we're working with the school district to find new ways to deliver schools, recognizing that land values continue to increase. So now I'll speak a little bit about infrastructure. And I want to speak specifically about the 3 provincial bills that were announced by the provincial government. The first is Bill 44, which is a small-scale multi-unit housing. The second is Bill 46, which is on development financing. And the third is Bill 47, which is the establishment of transit-oriented areas. So these are 3 significant bills that were well-intentioned, are well-intentioned. Delivering housing along transit corridors is a good thing. And finding ways to incorporate infill housing in existing neighborhoods is also a good thing. But the implementation has created some challenges, particularly from an infrastructure perspective. So I'll go through some of them here. So the 3 bills, have created a number of issues for cities. They have the small-scale multi-unit housing has added density where it was not previously anticipated. So allowing a homeowner to have 4 units or 6 units on a lot that was previously zoned for single-family homes creates infrastructure demands in those neighborhoods. The introduction of blanket densities in transit-oriented areas has created a bit of a destabilizing effect where you're getting a lot of momentum in sort of the outer rings at the expense of the inner rings. And that's an issue that we're going to have to continue to explore and attempt to resolve. Many of the neighborhoods that are now in TOA areas do not have a robust street network or pedestrian routes to that transit. So we've got a lot of cul-de-sacs in Surrey. So how do we introduce street networks so that people can get to those transit locations? And that's a lot of planning that needs to happen and a lot of change to those neighborhoods. Blanket densities in TOAs have created a bit of a challenge in acquiring land for infrastructure. So particularly in the outer ring of transit-oriented areas, land values are starting to increase, which makes it more difficult to acquire sites for schools and parks and things like that. So these are some of the challenges with the new legislation that we're working together to resolve. This is just an example. So the underlying coloring was our original Fleetwood plan, which shows a lot of density at the core around the SkyTrain stations. Layered on top of that are the TOA rings. So you'll see that there's a number of areas that are kind of outside the core where we weren't anticipating significant density increases. And now under the new Bill 47 legislation, those areas can now have up to 8-story, 3 FAR apartment buildings. So we've had to go back and redo a lot of the planning for these areas to help support that density increase. So some of the work in progress in order to address some of these challenges, we're currently adjusting our development cost charge framework to include small-scale multi-unit housing dwelling units. We're revising our financing of community facilities and amenities through density bonus and ACCs. We're establishing development requirements on unplanned densities. And we're incorporating new policies to facilitate delivery of parks and school sites, including density transfer and urban school development, which I had discussed previously. In terms of how we're adjusting our new DCCs, and I won't get into all the technicalities, but I think some of the key principles is we want to ensure that we can continue to deliver on the important capital projects that Mayor and Council have planned for the City of Surrey. So that includes rec centers, libraries, culture centers. We need to ensure that our new framework aligns with the provincial legislation. We want to make sure that our new framework is clear, is consistent, and is fair so that the development industry has a level playing field in which to operate. And we want to make sure that Surrey continues to be a great place to do business. So whatever we come up with from a DCC framework, from a CAC framework, that Surrey remains competitive in the market and that we remain a great place to develop. And these next two slides, I won't get into them, but essentially we have to redo our CAC framework to align with provincial legislation. If anyone has any questions on this, I'd be happy to answer them later. But that is work that's currently underway and will be completed in the early part of next year. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you. Obviously lots of work to do, but looking forward to working together on it. Thank you.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. I just want to start off, just as the other speakers have done, and really acknowledge our previous speakers, Your Worship, Trevor, Gill, Ron. Your insights and leadership in tackling the housing challenges are invaluable. And they underscore the importance of partnership, which we've talked a lot about today, between stakeholders in addressing the housing challenges that we have in Surrey, in British Columbia, and in Canada. So my name is Tegan Smith, and I'm the founder of Channel Consulting. We're a team that is dedicated to helping all types of landholders, families, nonprofits, developers, government organizations, to assess and realize the development potential of their lands. Through our development feasibility framework, we offer tailored solutions that support the delivery of projects by developers, nonprofits, and municipalities who are working together. And we truly do believe in the power of partnership to facilitate approvals and unlock housing supply. So in 2024, at Channel, it has been our mission to connect people and ideas to address housing needs. So, in addition to our professional services, we share weekly blog posts, and many of you have said, oh, I follow you on your blog. We also host virtual roundtables and master classes and provide those resources available freely to the entire industry and all of the stakeholders on our website, channelconsulting.ca. So in this room, about how many of you are working in government? Okay, development organizations? Okay, nonprofit organizations? Okay, a lot of nonprofit service providers, yeah. And what about service providers, consultants? Okay, great, excellent. And so regardless of where we're all coming from today, the three things that I hope you will take away from my concluding talk here is, one, housing affordability in Surrey is going to get worse before it gets better because this is a national problem. Two, Surrey is emerging as a model for collaboration and innovation. And three, it is incumbent on each one of us to roll up our sleeves, listen to the diverse perspectives, and act in whatever role we're in. So how many of you have seen the CMHC data that we need 5.8 million homes in Canada by 2030 to restore affordability? Okay, that is an entire Greater Toronto area into this country, folks. This is really difficult. So no doubt BC is struggling to meet demand, and this is compounded by the fact that the development industry is facing immense challenges. Many projects aren't progressing past third reading, and Ron mentioned in Surrey, that's 41,000 units, because those projects are financially unfeasible. That means that banks won't continue lending money to those projects because they don't pencil. So with rising development cost charges from Metro Vancouver, new requirements for the province for adaptable units, and inclusionary zoning policies, developers are facing increased costs and timeline uncertainty. What that means is that this traditional model that we've had, where development funds infrastructure and social benefits, is no longer sustainable. So now, more than ever, the relationship between government and the development industry must be better aligned, leaner, and more efficient. So, leveraging AI, removing parking requirements in transit-oriented areas, housing accelerator fund leverage, infrastructure investment. These are the things that Surrey is doing to show itself as a model for innovation and collaboration. The City of Surrey is taking bold steps. We just saw Ron's presentation on permitting and looking at development practices that can be a model for what happens not only in the province but across this country. It takes courage, real courage, and you mentioned this in your presentation, Mayor Locke, to listen to the industry and understand the barriers to delivering housing. And I heard you say that word, understanding the barriers. And then, as we saw with Ron's presentation, take meaningful action. As we all know, there is an inherent tension between regulation and housing delivery. And the devil is always in the details. The reality is that rigid regulatory models do not work in complexity. And Surrey's now an urban place with urban problems, with development sites that are complex to service with infrastructure. And the city is wide awake to this, and they're taking steps to evolve from a regulatory model to a facilitation model. Surrey's embracing innovative tools, like Ron mentioned, Archistar's AI to assist with plan checking and development review, multiplex application streamlining, launching the task force that's starting this week to explore a number of initiatives. In Canada, we not only have a housing crisis, we have an infrastructure crisis. The Federation of Canadian Municipalities issued a report that indicated the average infrastructure cost per new housing unit in Canada is $107,000. Mayor Locke mentioned it would be $800 million in sewer and water investment to meet BC's housing requirements. Growth can no longer be expected to pay for growth. The city is exploring sustainable infrastructure funding models, but funding for infrastructure either comes from taxpayers or development. And what we see with those 41,000 units that are stalled at third reading is that the development bucket is tapped out. So, working with senior government, and both Mayor Locke and Ron mentioned this, to find sustainable approaches to infrastructure funding will continue to be key for the city to get results with housing supply. Now, feel free to debate me on this one later, but I also do think there is a little bit of opportunity here in Surrey to take a second look at land use plans for Surrey Centre. We're likely to see more proposals for housing projects on sites that were originally designated for office use in the official community plan. With a decline in demand for traditional office in the suburbs, post-pandemic, Surrey has a unique chance to redefine its core through more mixed-use models that reflect the community values around housing. And this kind of flexibility on land use policy is essential for Surrey Centre, and I anticipate we will see those considerations. Okay, so now is time for the call to action. A significant opportunity in addressing the housing challenges is listening to diverse viewpoints. When we don't listen to the different perspectives, we miss vital opportunities to be part of the solution. Distrust and uncertainty are taking a toll on development of housing in BC. Across BC, I'm still seeing elected officials who don't want to engage with the financial realities of why projects are not feasible. Across BC, I am still seeing staff request nice-to-have items that impact project viability. And Gill mentioned the Central Saanich project, which I think is a great example of this type of activity that's still happening here in our province. Yet, when I point a finger, 3 fingers point back at me. So I must ask myself, what am I doing to leverage my expertise to facilitate housing solutions? This is why Surrey embracing the role as a facilitator stands out. Because effective facilitation requires tough conversations and brave leadership, qualities Surrey is embracing. So, Surrey's approach highlights the ongoing value of transparency and courage and it sets an example for others in BC and across the country. So as I look around this room, I'm so inspired by so much talent, expertise, and dedication. Developers, policymakers, community leaders, you're each in a position to make a difference. And I encourage you to keep fostering open dialogue to tackle the housing issues. Look for ways that you can be supportive of progress and things moving forward. Consider what 1 or 2 brave actions you could do in your role to help with the housing problem. So to close, I'd like to recognize that the problems that Surrey is facing, they're not unique to Surrey. Surrey is already and will continue to be an exemplar in embracing both innovation and collaboration in the permitting process. And we can't expect municipalities to shoulder this alone. My mission in 2024, as I mentioned, connecting people and ideas to address the housing problem. If this talk sparked 1 or 2 ideas about how you can contribute, then I've done my job. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tegan. I also follow your blog and get those emails, very informative. So now I will call for questions. So there is a microphone, if we can have that brought to the middle of the room. Please state your name when you're asking your question, your company, and please state your question briefly and respectfully as well. So just give everyone a minute. So the microphone is placed now in the center, and we have, Gerard, over to you.
I appreciate the pre-introduction. Tegan, just listening to your presentation, starting there, I wondered your thoughts. There seemed to be a missing party in the room, and you referenced the challenge of penciling. So, to back up, I'm Gerard Bramo. I'm a former chair of the Board of Trade. I'm the CEO of the Centre for Child Development of the Lower Mainland, Child Development Foundation of BC. I'm an active community member with SFU and interested in the new hospital that's coming, etc. But the party that I didn't hear anyone reference, but might be in the room, and I'd love your thoughts as a panel about it, is on the other side of penciling are the financial institutions. So how do you see them being part of that round table and part of helping solve the problems around penciling? Because what I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the parties that we're talking about so far are the development community, the city of Surrey, the province of British Columbia, and the federal government. And yet, unless I miss something, it's banks and financial institutions that are really key. So I'll leave it there and love to hear your response.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of your I would see that as a comment, and I would certainly agree that the lenders are an important part of this. In preparing a business plan for any viable investment, what a lender is looking for is certainty on costs and timelines and what those returns are going to be on the investment. And so in the current environment, where we have a really difficult time offering certainty on the costs and the timelines, then the lenders are not interested. In terms of the risks around costs, it is very complex in terms of the interest rate environment is getting better. The construction cost environment is getting better at the same time that we have these increases coming in fees. And all of the municipalities are scrambling to make sense of Bills 44, 46, and 47. And so even though I think over the long term, the legislation is going to be extremely helpful because of, like, for example, all the excellent work that Ron and his team have done. Many municipalities are doing that work. Some of them are in a lot more of a difficult spot with it. It's creating an immense amount of uncertainty around timelines. And so if I can say that most of the development feasibility assessments that we do are producing an unfortunate outcome. So whereas 2 years ago, many projects would be very excited by the outcome and the opportunities, now we're flagging a number of risks around what we know and what we don't know. And those risks are driven by conversations and engagement that we have with our municipal colleagues. They're saying, we just don't know when we're going to have this neighborhood plan. We're not sure when we're going to be able, And so I respect my colleagues very much. It's extremely stressful situation, but it has introduced an enormous amount of uncertainty, which is going to make our housing problem much worse before it gets better.
Thank you, Tegan. Any other response from any of the panelists? I know we spoke a little bit about the municipal part of things, the continuum of housing. So interested in your thoughts, Trevor.
What I can contribute, aligning with the question or the comment, it's interesting, and again, it's this balance. How much opportunity do we want for buyers to come in versus the amount of supply that's being created? But we're seeing that same conflict in the lending environment. So where there might be opportunity created by government, rightly or wrongly, whether the municipalities like it or not, for small scale, low density creation of housing. There's also this catch-22 within the requirements at CMHC for a new lender that wants to enter that space. So if somebody wants to be able to become an insured lender or provide insured mortgages for sixplexes, whatever it is, there's a requirement in the application form that you have to have experience in lending in those areas. Otherwise you can't, so it's a catch-20, new lenders can't come in. And so you're stuck with the same lending environment, lenders that are actually interested in higher density, bigger projects. And so again, it's kind of this environment, we're seeing it all over the place. I can talk to a bunch of examples where we create an incentive, create a really good idea or opportunity, but all of these other barriers exist that aren't being considered, which limits the actual execution of what's being created. And this kind of environment around the CMHC piece is one on the low density. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thanks, Jazz. Mark Sakai, BC Real Estate Association. I have a question about Mayor Locke's $800 million bombshell number for the infrastructure on the Bill 44. I assume that number comes from Ron, so I guess I'll direct this question to you, Ron. What was the assumption on that number? I assume that you don't need $800 million today because, there's this bill is going to see redevelopment of the single-family areas to multiplexes over a long period of time. And so, what is the assumption in that? How many of these multi-unit redevelopments per year are you sort of projecting?
Just goes? Oh, you just start talking. Okay. Yeah. So we did. It is over time. We made some assumptions in terms of what would likely be the uptake in terms of conversion of existing single-family homes to multi-unit housing, and what would be the potential infrastructure impacts on that. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I certainly can get back to you on exactly what assumptions were made. But it did look at generally what would be the uptake roughly on conversions of existing single-family homes over a period of time.
Mayor Locke handed him the answer.
Do you have them? Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much.
My question's for Ron, Todd Anafe of Marketing 604 Group. We have right now Redwood and Darts Hill being held up due to the fact that private developers have to front load the infrastructure at this time. You only have a 15-year recovery rate, plus that is not financeable. You have to use cash. Mm-hmm. What's the city looking at regarding that? And my other question, I'm going to cheat and take two. The biggest concern I hear from the private developers right now is GVRD fees are going up in March, I believe. And I know there's a petition out there. And that's going to, from what I've been told, is going to hold up development too. So if you can address both, please.
Yeah, so I'll address your first question first. So as I mentioned in my presentation, we are looking to use half funding to front infrastructure in 2 neighborhoods. The first one was Clayton, so that's already been approved. And I believe a contractor has already been awarded for that work. The other is Grandview, so that includes the 2 neighborhoods you mentioned. So we're hoping that the use of the Housing Accelerator funding to initiate that infrastructure work will help to open up those 2 plan areas. In terms of the Metro DCCs, and it's a little bit of a difficult one for me to answer because we collect on behalf of Metro Vancouver. I do know that a number of developers have raised concerns with the significant jump, and I am aware there was a presentation or a delegation to Metro recently. In terms of where Metro goes with that, that's to be seen, I guess, but certainly it's a significant increase, and we're hearing a lot from the development community that it is a barrier to deliver projects. So again, I can't speak directly for Metro, and I do know that Metro, actually I was in a meeting with them late last week. They are open to addressing any questions directly, but so I may not speak directly for them, but I do know it is a concern.
Thank you. Please. Hi, everybody. Manny Chadha here. I am a realtor. I am also a representative of the GRC committee at the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board, and I'm a director at the same organization. 2 questions. One, Gill, firstly for you. The Central Saanich project, I think that piqued the interest of a lot of people in the room. Would you be able to speak to some of the challenges that that project specifically had in terms of it getting stalled? I do hope it does get off the ground. It seems like there's a lot of good work being done there. And then to Tegan, Ron, and Trevor, could you speak to some of the challenges with regarding a lot of the construction and the housing that we want to get off the ground and onto the market, specifically the units that will be sold and then purchased and then either occupied or rented out. In today's climate, a lot of the projects that are able to make it past the lenders themselves, they struggle with sales on the ground because more and more of your mom and pop investors, and speaking about just the family that wants to purchase a secondary unit that their son or daughter or family member can one day live in. Those investors do not want to purchase anymore just because of the regulatory environment, controls around Airbnb, tenancy itself. And so they're shying away from making those purchases. Can you speak to the sales environment and struggles that we may have in the future if these units actually do make it to the shovels on the ground, but then might struggle with the sales themselves? Thank you.
Sure, thanks, Manny. The project in Central Saanich, I don't want to say is a bit of an outlier, but has the nonprofit and the private developer a bit baffled. It's a partnership, and it's not dissimilar to Unity, that did all of the right things, lined up a site that's actually adjacent to the nonprofit's existing site, so offers some operational advantages in terms of economies of scale, worked with the neighbors, has support of the majority of the neighbors, has the support of the First Nation, staff at the district. And then it came to a minor technicality at council. One council member that was supportive of the project, missing from council last week, wasn't expecting a vote, and they didn't defer it or refer it to public hearing. So it has that the partners reeling, but I think what it does is really underscore the uncertainty of any project that goes forward, but particularly true of nonprofit projects that do face more community opposition, typically, not always. And I think it gets us into a situation where we then have the province feeling like they need to step in because this is not a reasonable response in a housing crisis, both for the seniors who need housing, but also healthcare workers who can't afford to live in the community. And so it's starting to then, I think these are the factors that contribute to governments kind of being pitted against one another. So it has broader implications, I think.
And to the second question, just about the market itself with regards to sale of units, where investors are shying away from purchasing as a result of some of the changes that have come through. So we'll begin with you, Trevor.
I feel like everybody's referencing Mayor Locke's presentation several times, but I'm going to do it again, where she said, words matter. And I think I'm being kind to the governments, namely the provincial government, when we talk about the difficulty in balancing this environment. Everything every decision they're making has consequences, intentional or otherwise. But when we hear words like investors and speculators being demonized and talked about as if it's not a good thing in order to bring more housing into this province, and yet we know from an economic perspective that we need $200 to $300 billion of outside investment in order to get all of the housing off the ground and developed in this province. Those are two conflicting messages. And that $200 and $300 billion is not big players. It comes from everyone. Everyone takes on an element of risk. Everyone goes out onto the ledge in order to speculate, to invest, and to find a return, an opportunity for return on their investment. And unless we create that environment and get back to an opportunity for mom and pops, large investors, our neighbors, colleagues, and business people in the communities to be able to feel like there's an environment where they can rightly take on the risk and put their money into development in this province, we are going to continue to have a challenge. And I think that message has to be much clearer, and it can't be this one message conflicting with another when we talk about investment in this province.
Yeah, Ron, over to you.
And this doesn't speak directly to the question, but just something to note. We're getting a lot of development projects that were approved by council, 1, 2, 3 years ago that are coming back. And developers are saying that project doesn't work anymore. I can't get financing for that project. And we're trying to take a very proactive approach in making it easy for projects to shift. And there are two parts to that. One is, and Mayor Locke, we do like to have sharp pencils in planning, but I think sometimes the pencil has to be a little less sharp in terms of our zoning requirements to allow for some flexibility for projects to evolve as market conditions change. The other part is just being more flexible in terms of what processes are necessary for projects to shift, and in terms of development permit requirements and things like that. Again, to create flexibility in an uncertain market.
Thank you, Ron. Please.
Hi there. Thank you, everyone, first for the illuminating conversation and presentations. Alex Wright from Anthem Properties. Ron, you partially addressed this with your comments on the regional DCC increases, which of course you can't speak to as a representative of them, which you aren't. Your presentation, I think, put it really well as far as saying it's not necessarily an approval problem, it's a delivery problem. And I think the thing that's really hampering delivery is cost. And there's any number of costs that are contributing to that, whether it's construction costs, interest costs, et cetera. But I think really essentially what we have is kind of an infrastructure problem largely. We have all these very ambitious goals for housing, whether it's from cities like Surrey, which is doing a great job in kind of leading the way from a municipality perspective. And then, provinces and federal governments setting these large, ambitious targets, right? But what they're not necessarily accompanied with is a similar commitment to infrastructure. And it's really not the city's role to play that, though it's admirable that you're doing work in Clayton and Grandview and other areas with the money you received. So really this is a big infrastructure problem, which is partially being increased by things like Bill 44. That $800 million number is staggering. That's a staggering number, right? So things have to proceed, housing needs to get built. But there's this massive burden of infrastructure costs that need to be borne by some group. And, in part, that's being downloaded down through the Metro van DCCs, which have gotten to the point where it's kind of untenable, right? So I guess my question at the end of all of this is, are the cities, or is the city actively engaging with the province, with the federal government to try to come up with a solution for what really is a big part, which is infrastructure? Yes, it's a housing problem, but what sits immediately underneath that is infrastructure. And until that gets filled, and individual developers just can't do it, the projects aren't robust enough to carry significant infrastructure costs. And it's similar for the cities, right? So it has to get borne by some combination of entities. I'm just wondering, what that conversation looks like and whether it's ongoing. And, that's a massive question to pose, but any comments on that would be appreciated.
So I'll start, and yeah, that is a significant challenge. And certainly, we are, and I know Mayor and Council is expressing concerns at the provincial and federal level regarding the lack of investment in infrastructure. Certainly, the Housing Accelerator funding was great. It allowed us to do something we've never done before, which is to invest directly in infrastructure. But we do need more things like that. Because you're right, that infrastructure is needed for a growing community, and it needs to be financed somehow. So if there's not external funding, it either has to come through development or it has to come through taxpayer dollars. So it's a significant issue. I mean, the things that we're trying to do in planning to kind of lessen the blow is looking at how are those fees collected. So we have a number of charges that are collected at rezoning, for example. Are there opportunities to extend those out so they're collected either a building permit or multiple phases of the building permit or occupancy, again, to find ways to, lessen the burden on development. But certainly it is a significant challenge without additional funding at the provincial and federal level.
Thank you, Ron. Janet, over to you.
Hello, my name is Janet Brown, and I'm from the Surrey Urban Mission, and I've only been employed by them for the last 2 weeks. I don't have a question today, I just have a comment for something for us all to consider respectfully. Thank you. This is a development industry forum addressing the housing crisis, and the housing crisis is also impacting nonprofits like the Surrey Urban Mission. We have the Welcome Hub on the King George Boulevard. It is closing the middle of December because we don't have enough funding to keep it open. 66 beds approximately, several meals a day we serve our clients there. We also have a facility called Safe Sleep, which also sleeps dozens of people. It's also set to close at the end of December because we don't have an extended lease there. These are hundreds of people that are going to be on our street, and they don't have anywhere to sleep either. They are also in a housing crisis. And we heard from the mayor, 1,800 new dwelling units are set to be built in North Surrey. That's our area of Wally. And we feel we are being pushed out all the time. Where are these people going to go? We have 5 sites in the Wally area that we serve our clients at. We've also heard from the mayor's report on homelessness that homelessness has increased 65% in the city of Surrey over the last 3 years. It's only going to get worse because of the cost of housing, not only in Surrey but across the Metro Vancouver area. So just something to think about. It's not only the housing crisis for people who are employed, it is a housing crisis for people who rely on services like the Surrey Urban Mission. Where are these people going to rest their head at night? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janet. Well, that's all the time we have for questions. Thank you very much to our panel of speakers, Trevor Koot, Gill Atkey, Ron Gill, and Tegan Smith, our keynote speaker, Mayor Locke, for taking the time to be with us today and participating in this dialogue. We are here to work together to ensure that Surrey continues to be the city in which we wish to live, learn, work, and play. And I heard throughout everyone's conversation and comments, collaboration is key. Right now, we have an opportunity to be the voice of change. We have a new provincial government that's been elected. We have new MLAs within the city of Surrey and across the region. We may have a federal election as well, coming up very soon within the next year. The Surrey Board of Trade is here to act as your voice when you cannot act as your own individual voice. We have a development and land use team where you can participate, share your ideas, advocate on behalf of your organization. We are here to support you in whatever way we can. And of course, we would like to thank our sponsors of today's event as well. Our presenting sponsor, Unity, our lunch sponsors, the BM Group of Companies and BC Real Estate Association. Our supporting sponsors, Applin and Martin Consultants Limited, East to West Financial Corporation, and Surrey City Development Corporation, as well as our community sponsor, Fortis BC. A round of applause for our sponsors and speakers today. And folks, just a reminder, some events coming up. On November 6th is the Business in Surrey new member induction here at the Sheraton. On Thursday, November 7th is our Academy Awards style, a 26th annual Surrey Business Excellence Awards, 26 years, wow. November 13th is the Networking at Night hosted by Mackey's Place. And November 14th is a mixer and open house at Genuine Athletics. On November 21st, we have an in-person impact learning lab, Beyond Handshakes, Modern Strategies for Effective Networking. And November 27th is the Surrey Youth Networking Night Extravaganza. And December 5th is the Seasonal Sizzle Business Reception. And for more details, please do visit businessinsurrey.com. Thank you all for attending and make it a great business day.